Okay, so stage two. Stage one was where we just go through and we watch the piece, we look at the lyrics, we listen to it, we watch the video, and we make observations. And typically what you'll find is the things that stick out to you the most will be the things that you should be writing about, that will kind of contribute to your thesis, because they stick out to you for a reason, so you kind of notice those. All right, so stage two is really where we come in and we kind of like, we're looking at text structure. What we're doing is we're tracking the shifts, we're looking at kind of like that initial lit talk. Remember our purpose, we've always got to know what our purpose is, and our purpose is to be able to analyze the music video, and we're looking at how the theme is developed, because if we look at how the author or how the singer-songwriter, the producer developed theme, like that's the whole piece. So I don't know if it skipped that or not, but anyway. So what we're doing is we're tracking shifts, so we annotate, okay? It's the concept of annotation. So you need to print out the lyrics for your piece. And what you're going to be looking for first after you made those initial observations is you have to determine the plot elements, okay? You have to figure out how this piece was structured, because that's going to start to unravel what we dig into it, and we try to figure out how they actually did go in and develop a theme. So we're looking at exposition. Again, this is what this is your concept map. And here's kind of what my example of what I came up with real quickly. You have to know like the literary tools, the elements. You have to know the structural patterns in order to be able to talk about this stuff in your analysis. Otherwise, you're not credible and you're not going to do very well. And you're going to end up just sort of like BS in your paper, which is not acceptable. So you have to know this stuff. You have to know what rise in action is, your minor conflicts. Rise in action is all the different things where they're developing character, they're developing issues, problems. People are dealing with different things in the story or the music video. Minor conflicts are starting to be developed. The central conflict is like the major conflict. And the major conflict, or we can sometimes call it the central conflict, is actually solved by the climax of the story. Okay? This is what solves it. This is what solves the major problem. Then what ends up happening is you have the following action. And this solves the minor conflict, like all these little sort of like issues, that were kind of coming up. And then we have the resolution, okay? Oh, it's things skipping for whatever reason. The resolution is what kind of like, it ends, it kind of ties up some of these like little issues that were, they were kind of like a problem before. Maybe they even like a little bit of a subplot, and so the resolution solves that. Here's kind of my example. You have to understand that these annotations are literally layers, okay? So I went through the first time, and I decided to color code it, and I was looking for like word art, like so that's like personification. That's like a lot of the writer's tools that they'll use. Hyperbole, metaphor, descriptive language, which is like imagery. But you gotta know that stuff, and that's why you did the concept map. If you didn't do the concept map, then you're going to be really behind. Then the purple, as I was looking, remember, we have to look for structural patterns. We have to know what the writer did in exposition. We have to be able to talk about that. We have to be able to talk about what he did in different parts of the piece. The structure, we're looking for anything that is like a pattern. Maybe some rhyming, some repetition. I notice a lot of repetition and rhyming in music videos. Point of view, perspective. The connotation, assonance, the setting, like what about the setting? Flash forward, flash back. Any of that kind of stuff. And so what I did is I went through and I just kind of did my own version of annotations. Now, what this leads to, this is why it's so important, is because at some point you guys know that you have to write a thesis. Well, the way that you determine the thesis is you have to go through this process and do layers of annotation, which then leads you to identifying the theme. Okay? So think of these things. Theme is the author's message. It's what he was trying to get across. Theme is the message, what the writer is trying to get across to us, okay? And so I kind of divide that thinking up into two parts. I look at how he structured the piece and see if that reveals, like, part of like what his theme was. Like when you think of Chronicle of a Death Foretold, it's all like really confusing, right? Like in the plot, like it's non-linear, it's just kind of like blah. Well, that structure really leads to some of the overall message that when you live in like chaos and confusion, it leads to a community that just fails its people. So like the structure is huge. The writer tools, that's all the other lit terms, that's the literary elements. That's it includes plot, setting, characterization, it includes figurative language, it includes everything, okay? So you've got to be able to know this stuff, all right? And so how is the author's message developed? Through this stuff, all right? The theme is what we're looking for. We're doing this kind of stuff and breaking it down piece by piece to be able to determine what the theme or the message is. I determined that the theme, because during annotation is when I discovered it, but I determined that the theme of Lady Antebellum's song was to kind of like wake up and remember your purpose. And so then what you have to do is you have to do the next stage. And so what you have to do here is you have to in order to determine your thesis of your paper, because the thesis, you have to come up with your thesis before you do anything else with your paper, otherwise you have no purpose in your paper, okay? So identify the central idea or theme of the piece, all right, which we're in the process of doing. We track how it was developed, which I just talked to you about. Then you answer these questions. These questions sort of help your thinking. What did you notice about the theme? What is your takeaway? Like, so this is what you think about it. This is like where I ask you, like in that first, that handout on that first page, I say, well, what's your opinion? And I say, what is your initial thoughts in response to the resolution or result of the problems the main character faced? It's right there. You know, what did you think about what happened, man? Like, what were your thoughts? And it says, list them out. So you write them out. Do what this thing says. This helps you. This whole handout that I emailed to you guys, this is it. Otherwise, you're just coming up and talking to me, and I'm just repeating this information, and quite frankly, I don't have time for that. I've done that already. Why does whatever it is that you think, why does it matter? You know, that question, if you answer that in your mind, then you can write that down, and that's going to help you determine what your thesis is going to be. So you rewrite all of this so you say something that matters. So back up here, I have a theme identified. I knew that I couldn't just leave it generic, right? Because that's not saying anything that matters. It's not saying anything kind of new that I can bring to the literary table. So I said, well, I answered those questions. I said, I notice he repeats "Tell the World" lots of times, which makes me think of theme and helps me define what I want to say about the theme. And so I said, if you sleep through life unaware, and I kind of circled you because I know I have to be objective, but I can fix that later. If you sleep through life unaware of our purpose in the world and our presence, the better we have to freely give dies and empty graveyards. Wow, that's saying something worth matters, huh? Okay, and that's what you have to do. That's how you then determine your thesis. Then you go through that packet, and it structures you all the way along. I mean, everything, just like when you need the directions in the packet, I can't do much more. So you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do the analysis, and you're going to have to dig in and investigate. You have to want this more for yourself than I want it for you. Okay, quite frankly, that's where we are. So then you go in the packet, and it has, you go through the first two sheets are brainstorming sheets. You tell me you don't understand it, and it's because you just don't read it. You have to read it to understand it. Then it takes you through, and it walks you through the introductory paragraph, walks you through the body where you do the analysis part, and you include all the thinking. Then it walks you through the conclusion. So when you come to me and tell me that you don't know how to do a conclusion, I just say, you know what? You have a handout right in front of you.